you decided to make that choice? I mean, to me, most people are just chasing it the opposite direction. I'm doing the crowdfunding until I can get somebody to help me do this.
Well, the less I say about that, the better. It was not a very happy or friendly separation.
Well, that's unfortunate.
And it would be. I'm aware that the publisher went out of his way to. He's had. I'm not the only book or creator that has left that company, and there's we all have our reasons, you know.
I don't know anything about this myself, so you can divulge as little as you want. I was just curious from, like you said, the standpoint of there are a lot of people that's what they fetishize over is, like, finding somebody who will publish their stuff.
Finding a publisher. Yeah, well, that was my idea for a long time too. I was self-publishing. I created Wolf and Batsy in 1999. Started drawing the comics in 2000, and just did it just sporadically on the side of my day job and family life. And I was pitching it to publishers, and for a while, it got picked up by this little publisher and then that little publisher, and they put out a couple issues, but some of these places had financial problems and ended up closing down, as a lot of small publishers tend to do. And finally I said, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to do it myself. So from 2008 all the way till 2017, I was self-publishing trade paperbacks of Wolf and Batsy stories. And in 2021, a publisher came along and wanted to put it out, basically reprinting the stories that were in the trade paperbacks. And I thought, wow, this is great. That's great working with a publisher that's going to deal with the printer, deal with the inventory, the distribution, fulfilling orders, the print, all that stuff. And the promotion, of course, the advertising. And I can take that burden off my shoulders, and I can just focus on making the book, which sounded like a very ideal situation. And so that's the way it was for about 2 years, and it was a very happy situation. I thought, wow, this is great. This is the publisher I've been waiting for, somebody who really gets it and wants to go the distance with it, because I have a lot of Wolf and Batsy material, a lot of backlog in those trade paperbacks I was self-publishing that I can just keep reprinting, or as well as making new stories. And then in the third year, the publisher launched his own book and immediately said, okay, I can't promote you guys anymore. I only have time to promote my own book. All the promotion is on you guys now.
That's a serious realigning of what we're supposed to be doing in this deal, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand to a certain degree I need to be out there pushing my book. That makes sense, doing interviews and things like that. But it was like to shove all of that on the individual creators. And it also came with a lot of like demands and guilt trips and nobody's doing enough. You guys aren't doing enough. Blah 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 blah. And it just doesn't come natural to everyone to put out a YouTube video every single day. And not everybody got into comics to be a broadcaster. You know what I mean? And I felt like there was a real feeling of coming from this publisher of, he's got his own book now. It's like, why does he need the rest of these guys? It kind of felt like that. And it just got to be the kind of thing where it was like, well, good grief. Why should I share the profits with you? I can deal with if I got to do the promotion part too, I can deal with fulfillment and shipping orders. And I've done self-publishing before, so I know how to work with a printer. And so there were tensions there, and then of course all it took was one stupid argument over nothing. Publisher had a little bit of a temper tantrum, and finally and then just said, it just got to be very just like
things need to dissolve when they need to dissolve. So unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like it culminated in an argument over nothing, in my opinion, and then it was just like, you know what, fine, get out of here. Like it didn't. I was no longer. It was made clear that I was no longer welcome, And to me, it was just like, well, that's too bad that we couldn't just compromise.
Not to air dirty laundry, but I think it is definitely useful for people to know that if the publisher is your dream, it's maybe not always what you're looking for, and even when it is, it doesn't mean it's always going to be what you expect it to be. Things change, life changes, and I mean the whole industry in the past 10 years and in the next 10 years, I'm sure it's going to change even more than it has and become more tumultuous. So,
Yeah, and the truth is, nobody's ever going to care about your book as much as you are, and nobody's ever going to handle it as well as you are. And there are going to be times when if you're working with a publisher, there are bound to be times when you're just bopping along, creating your comic or promoting your comic in whatever way feels natural to you, and out of nowhere you get a very unhappy private message saying, I don't like the way you're doing this, or I do like the way you're doing that, but I don't like this, and change that, stop doing this, or do this different, or whatever. And it's just like, why should that even make a difference?
well, and even from my perspective, like when I'm a marketer, I'm talking to a client, or I'm talking to a prospective client about what they're doing. There's always this point where like my own ideas of like how we can sell this thing, how we can make people get interested and creep in, and they may not align necessarily with what the creator's vision of it is. It's like, because for me, it's like I want you to be able to sell your comics. So how do I hack into what's already in people's brains, and how do I make them want this thing? Is that always going to be the way that's going to be useful to you, as opposed to we're just trying to put these books in people's hands? So
Yeah. And when you're, like I said, having self-published for a long time before that, it's like, well, if you're not going to do the work of the publisher, then why should I share the profits with you? And the motivation to stay becomes less and less. And then and like I said, all it takes is one argument over nothing, and then it's like, well, what's the point of this? It's really too bad. It's really too bad, because my goal was to stick it out, and it's like, well, if I have to be a punching bag for a while, whatever, I can do that. I mean, it's like I've worked in TV animation for 23 years. I've worked with producers, I've worked with directors, I've worked with other artists. I know how to be part of a creative team and compromise and negotiate. And strangely enough, I've worked with all kinds of egos and personalities, and I find that comic book publishers are more impossible to compromise with than anyone. There's a very my way or the highway attitude behind the scenes.
well, in this, and maybe I'm wrong. This is all you. Like you create Wolf and Batsy, the whole thing. It's not like you're sending it off to a creator to be made, right? Or do you have another artist? That's what I thought. So, I mean, this is like at no point is this ever put into anybody's hands to help you create this vision. This is your vision, start to finish, and it's kind of like, well, it's almost like why am I letting this one person in at the finish line? I might as well handle the whole thing my own way if it's not going to be that.
Yeah, and it's like you want to stick it out as long as you can for the readers and get as many issues out as you can, but there's a point, there's a party that just goes, why am I putting up with this? So, not that normally I would not air dirty laundry either, but I understand the publisher's already gone out of his way to do that himself. So I guess it's too bad. Our last conversation ended with me saying, well, when this announcement comes out that I'm no longer with the company, can we just chalk it up to creative differences and leave it at that? And the publisher gave me a thumbs up, which I thought meant, okay, well, cool. And then he proceeded to not honor that agreement. So I guess, like I said, normally I would consider it unprofessional to air dirty laundry, but I guess the other side already has told their one-sided narrative spun version of it. I guess it's okay for me to say my piece.